Welcome back. Joining me now is Harvard professor Arthur Brooks, who studies and teaches the science of happiness and is the author of the upcoming book, The Happiness Files. Professor Brooks, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you so much for being here to be a part of this conversation. You just heard my past two conversations in which we talked about the epidemic of loneliness and anxiety. And with you, I want to talk about the other side of this, which is the happiness formula. You are the professor of happiness, and you have developed a happiness formula. Can you lay it out for us, Professor Brooks?
Of course. You know, one of the biggest mistakes that people make is thinking that happiness is a feeling, and they're chasing a feeling, which is not the way emotions work. Emotions they're not there to give you a good day. They're there to give you alerts to things that are opportunities and threats around you. The thing to understand about happiness is that it's more tangible. The feelings are evidence of happiness. Actual happiness, or the happiest people, have a combination of three very concrete things in their lives. It's enjoyment of their life, it's satisfaction with their activities and accomplishments, and most importantly, it's a sense of the meaning of their existence, the meaning of life. And that last pillar, that last macronutrient of happiness, meaning, actually lies behind the problems that we see today. When I'm looking at a large group of people and I see a big unhappiness problem, I'm going to look for a barrier to one of those three things: enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning. When I'm working with an executive or just anybody for that matter, I'm going to find a blockage. And that's what we find with people, especially under 30 years old today, is a lack of a sense of the meaning of their lives. While they're looking for the meaning of their lives, they're doing all sorts of counterproductive things like scrolling on their phones, etc. But technology is not the root. Technology is part of the doom loop of meaning, which is actually leading to the mental health crisis that we see today.
Well, let's talk about a book that you actually co-wrote with Oprah. It's called Build the Life You Want: The Art and Science of Getting Happier. And you say happiness is actually something that you need to work at. What is the first step toward that happiness journey?
Well, to begin with, happiness, pure happiness, is not a goal that we can reliably actually try to hit in our lives. On the contrary, we have negative emotions for a reason. We have negative experiences as part of an ordinary life. And so the first thing that I teach my students is you can't be perfectly happy. Don't say, I want to be happy. Say, I want to be happier. And the way to do that is by looking, for example, at the formula that we just laid out and getting strategies and habits in your life to get more enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning.
Is there anything that you learned from Oprah about being happy and that experience of writing the book with her?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, what a wonderful friend she has become over the last few years. And what I've learned from Oprah, it's funny because in my work, I have the opportunity to work with a lot of people in public life, people with huge media personas, for example, and they're generally different in public than they are in private. Necessarily, I mean, you have a private life and you have a public life. Oprah's the same person, and this is part of her formula for happiness that we can actually all learn something from. The reason that, as she sees it, she enjoys a lot of the world's earthly rewards of money and power and the admiration of millions and billions of people around the world. She sees that has been granted to her as an opportunity to lift other people up. And as such, she has a peace about her. So on the days when I'm a little bit stressed out and anxious, sometimes I'll text Oprah. So, and it helps me because she's the kind of person that I would like to be more, I'd like to be more like her.
Well, it's incredible the two of you have this book that you co-wrote together. I want to ask you about something that you raised, Professor Brooks, which is this issue of technology, of social media. You heard me talking to Congressman Kennedy about it, to Dr. Murthy about it as well. The average internet user in the United States, I can't believe this, will end up spending about 20 years online across the course of their adult life. It's hard to process that. Is there a way to be online and to be happy?
There is, but here's the basic formula. In any technology, not just the internet, not just any sort of computing or non-face-to-face technology, all the stuff that we have around us, if it's a complement to your in-person relationships, it's beneficial. If it's a substitute for your in-person relationships, it's a problem. That's a lot of what Dr. Murthy was talking about, but that's the formula to think about for your kids and your own life. Is Zoom actually substituting for my ability to be with people in person? Is social media substituting for my real friends? If the answer is yes, you have a problem. On the other hand, if it's making actually your relationships richer, which means it has to be within certain bounds, you can't be doing it all day long, then it can actually be part of a more rewarding life, and it won't turn into this doom loop where I'm bored and I'm lonely, so I turn to the internet, I turn to the apps, and that makes me more bored and lonely. I have a harder time finding the meaning of my life, and down it goes. That's like what Congressman Kennedy was talking about with alcohol and drugs. Yeah. Alcohol and drugs are part of the doom loop in life, but you got to know why you're using, first of all.
Well, a profound way to think about it. In one of your columns in The Atlantic, you cite a survey that suggests that more than half of young people actually say they want to be influencers. And you write that that can actually make you unhappier because to be so focused on oneself is not necessarily a healthy thing. What is your advice to young people in that space? How do you navigate that desire if you want to be an influencer versus the reality that it might not be the best thing?
Well, understanding the truth is very important about this. The truth of the matter is that we have to understand ourselves as other people see us, but we have to be looking out and observing and experiencing our own lives as well. And the more that we're on our phones, the more effectively we are looking in a mirror. And there's a ton of evidence that shows that when you're looking in the mirror, you are not happy. You're less happy because precisely you're focusing on yourself. And so the mirror of it all is the biggest problem that people actually face. Being an influencer is like standing in a mirror, all day long. And that's the sort of the secret, the fast path to depression and anxiety. Understanding that is the key to it. When young people actually understand what's going on in their brains, which is a lot of what I teach, I talk an awful lot about the neuroscience of these problems. And when they understand that psychology is biology, they have a lot more power. And that's one of the things we need to bring to the education for young people today.
Professor Brooks, you also talk about faith and the fact that more and more Americans say they actually don't follow any organized religion. But you say it's not necessarily about that you can have faith, you can be faithful, and that can be an important component to finding happiness as well.
That's true. And the falling away of faith and all things like faith is a major contributor to this lack of life's meaning, as you can imagine. Now, when I talk about this with my students, I acknowledge I'm a Catholic. It's the most important thing in my life, as a matter of fact. But really what we're talking about is transcendence away from looking in the mirror, being bigger than just you, standing in awe of the universe. And there are many things that people can actually do to get this transcendence, to get away from the tedium of the psychodrama of your own life. For some people, that means walking in nature or studying great music or starting a meditation practice or going back to church if that's actually what is part of your own life. But you need something. You need to transcend your ordinary life, because if you won't, you'll be too much with yourself. And that's just not healthy.
Well, Professor Brooks, it's such important information, such an important part of this broader conversation. Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you for your attention to this. And we can solve this problem. We just have to do it together.
All right. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.